Today we're going to make chicken noodle soup. Just really nourishing, delicious, a great way to have a quick lunch or like just satisfying warming dinner. Let's get started. So we need 8 cups of chicken broth, an onion, 3 smaller ribs of celery. If they're big, you can use 2. 1 big carrot, or I have here 2 smaller carrots, and I have peeled those. About 1 cup of chopped chicken. I like it fairly small, but do it however you like. Salt and pepper, and then some noodles. Let's get started. Okay, I forgot to mention you need either a little bit of butter or some olive oil because we're going to saute the vegetables. Now, I like to wear gloves when I'm chopping onion. It just is nicer after. Throw it away. I know there's other remedies, but that's what I like. And I think I'm going to do it last. I have peeled the carrots just to save time, but make sure you peel the carrots. That outer part of the carrot is not desirable. Okay, now when they start to get really big like this, I like to cut them. Okay, I'm gonna make a little pile. Okay, we're just gonna continue with these. Now, if you feel like it's getting too big, you can cut it. Okay, make a little pile over here. Now the onion. We're gonna peel the skin, the paper layer off. I normally like to do this over my garbage. And then see, this is a little papery too. Right here is a little bit dry looking, so I just go down a second layer till you have a nice, shiny, non-withery looking part. So discard the paper. Just gonna do bigger, chunkier cuts of onion, having more of a home style type chicken noodle soup. Okay, moving on. Now you can do this in a tall pot, a stock pot, or the InstantPot. So we are going to turn our InstantPot onto saute. To that, we're going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil. Okay, and we're going to heat up the oil until it's hot. That way we can saute our vegetables. Okay, the oil's nice and hot. Make sure that you kind of move it around to get all the areas coated. But we are going to add our vegetables now. And we're just looking for these to soften. We do not want to brown them. We want them to get translucent and soften. And I like to kind of press a little bit and let the onions separate. I'll do this a couple of times. But because we are just looking for softening, also see this big onion that didn't get cut properly? I like to just chop it when I see stuff like that. So I'm going to put the lid on it and let it kind of soften itself with the steam. Okay, take a peek. It's been a couple of minutes. And then again, I kind of like to press them a little bit and have the onions spread apart, because it's easy for it to stay kind of in that formation, how they kind of are hugged together. I like to push on them a little bit to make them open up and cook a little quicker, but don't push. I'm not pushing super hard. I'm just putting some pressure against the wall with them. Okay, I'm going to put the lid on for just a couple more minutes. So it's looking pretty good. If we keep going any longer, it might start to do some actual browning. So we are going to stop here. Okay, to this we are going to add chicken broth. Now I made my own chicken broth. So if you would like to see that video, it's in the description. It's really easy, and the more you learn to cook, the more you might want to add your own homemade items in place of store-bought processed. Just because they are healthier, you know what's in it, and it doesn't have as many preservatives and these other things that are in a lot of the store items. But I definitely have chicken broth and chicken stock and bone broth in my pantry that are purchased from a store, so it's not that I only do that. So we are going to want to bring these to a boil, and to this I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of salt. I do like salt, so I am 100% sure I'm going to be adding more, but you don't want it to get too salty. So we're going to bring that to a boil, let it simmer for a little bit before we add the chicken, let that cook, and the noodles. Okay, it's at a boil. We're going to let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes until the vegetables are soft. It's really hard to see. So I'm going to partially cover it just so all of the liquid doesn't boil away, and about 15-ish minutes to test out the vegetables. Also, let me break in right here. When I covered the soup, I turned it down to the meat stew one, so it wasn't at a hard boil, it was more of a simmer. But if you're on the stove, you want to turn it down to a simmer and simmer for about 15 minutes. So it's been about 15 minutes, and we're just going to try to poke the vegetables to see if they are tender, and they are. The carrots are the firmest, so you would want to test one of those. To this, we are going to add the chicken. Now, if you wanted some chicken soup without the noodles, this would be it. You just want to salt and pepper it to taste. That would be good enough. And also, if you are going to not serve the whole thing, you will want to divide it in whatever portion you're going to serve today. Only put in the noodles for that amount. And then when you heat up the rest of it a different day is when you want to add the noodles. Okay, you want to taste it to see if it has enough salt, and I'm going to add probably about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And we want to add the pepper. Let's bring that up to a boil again. And once it's boiling, we are going to add the noodles. And if they're dry noodles, follow the packaging on how long to boil them for before serving. With the homemade noodles, which we are going to add today, it's usually about 5 minutes or so. Doesn't need a lot of time. So we're going to bring that up to a boil. Oh, and let's taste it one more time to see if we need any more salt. I'm going to add about another 1/4 of a teaspoon, because with the noodles we might need a little bit more. In fact, I'm going to add just a little bit more. Let's stir that around. I'm going to taste test just a little bit more. Yeah, that tastes just right. After we add the noodles, it might absorb it, and we want to add a little bit more. So let's wait for that to boil. The water is back at a boil. It's kind of hard to see this, and I apologize. But we are going to add the noodles. I have broken up the noodles into single pieces. Okay, and you need to bring it back up to a boil before you start your timer. So we're going to do 5 minutes, but it will start when it's at a bigger boil. Now you want to test one of the noodles. Make sure it's not doughy or like the actual flour flavor, like raw flour flavor. It just has a chewiness of doneness. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that's what it tastes like to me. That is done. Now I'm gonna take a bite and try to have the soup, the noodle, everything all together. See if I need to add more salt or pepper. Yeah, it tastes delicious. If you wanted, you could add some poultry seasoning, garlic powder, whatever you think. But this is just a really simple chicken noodle soup flavor that's really good just on its own. If you're not really tasting a lot of the chicken, make sure that you've added enough salt because that enhances the flavors. And then pepper, it just also is just a part of chicken noodle. And so I'm going to add just the tiniest bit more of pepper. And that's it. Just really simple. It has a lot of nutrients. If you're ever feeling sick, it just helps give you a pick-me-up. So give this a try. It's just so easy and nourishing. It's good for your body. Try it with or without the noodles. Definitely healthier without the noodles, but it's so good with the noodles. Give that a try too. Okay, that's just my best version of chicken noodle.